And we are live. I hope everyone is doing all right. I'm doing an uncorking of the Ardbeg Blaaack. AJ Lopez, thank you much for tuning in, and Mark Brown. Notification will be going out. Just planned this about an hour ago. I had a pattern a while back where I would do a live uncorking and then do a formal review because there is a difference between sort of the neck pour and then how you get past the shoulder. If you've been following me for a while, you've heard me say this a bunch of times. So I would do the live stream. Rob G, thank you much for tuning in. So I would do a live stream on corking, give preliminary sort of assessment of the whiskey, and then a more formal review. And I quit doing it because not to get too graphic, but it was sort of like one last cause. Thank you very much for tuning in. It was sort of like if you talk too much about a whiskey from an uncorking, in a sense, do people perceive whatever you say in a live stream as that being real review? Have you more or less sort of blown your wad during a live stream for an uncorking? Buru Tone, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, thank you much for tuning in. But I was going to open this evening, not in front of a camera, spend a couple of days with it, then do a formal review on Wednesday. My pattern typically has been have it a couple of times. On the day that I'm going to record the video, I'll pour myself in the morning. I'll pour some to about there, put a cover on it. The Draminator, Jeff Ayer, thank you much for tuning in. Pour myself up to about there, put a cover on it, and then go to work. So it'll sit in the glass all day long, and then when I come home in the evening, it'll opened up more in the glass, sort of ready to review. Chad Adams, thank you very much for tuning in. But I thought, you know what? Because of the situations, things how they really are or how they are. There's been a lot of live streams this weekend. Alan, Whiskey Friend went live. Unfortunately, he had some technical difficulties. Roy Aquavite did a Patreon live stream. Drew over at Scotch for Dummies is doing one now. I think it's still going. He's playing the keyboards and sort of doing requests. Very, very talented guy, man. Clearly, if the Scotch for Dummies was like the Starship Enterprise, he would be Scotty. Right? I don't know who Captain Kirk or Spock is. Probably, or my scrub Andrew and Drew. Anyway, Dr. Scott is probably closest to Mr. Spock. Anyway, he definitely would be, Scotty at the Enterprise. Jason Coates, thank you very much for tuning in. So I kind of quit doing the live uncorkings mostly because I kind of felt like I was doing the same thing twice. But due to the current circumstance, rather than me just by myself, perhaps watching a movie or something like that, I would do an uncorking and talk a little bit about it and perhaps provide a little bit more sort of background information. Drew is the piano man. Michael Mills, thank you much for tuning in. By the way, so I had this is a little sommelier tool for uncorking. This is a Chateau Laguille, probably the top of the line cork removers. And this is a special edition I got from the Quartermaster Sommeliers. This blade is unbelievably sharp. You will take your finger off with it. It's really, really sharp. So I had it on standby in case I needed it. But it looks like this is going to open up really, really, really nice. All right. The dude with the leaf blower is out here tonight. Leaf blower at this time of the day, even if you're in California, it's kind of late in the day. My leaf blower comes by on Mondays while I'm at work. Bruto, do I have an Osso? So an Osso goes like this. So if a cork, you can go down the sides of the cork rather than screwing into a cork. And then there's a thing called a Durant. Durant has like this, but it has a corkscrew that goes through the middle. So this holds the side, and then a Durant goes down through the middle. I don't have an Osso, but I have a Durant. So which is sort of a combination between this and an Osso. Mainly need to use those for really, really, really old corks, for port, or it's like, oh crud, something went wrong. But I don't use them all the time. Alrighty. So looks like this can open up really, really nice, simple and easy. Nice little pop there. So I have 2 bottles of the Ardbeg Blaaack. I have a UK edition, and I have an American edition. Donald Rance, thank you much for tuning in. This is the UK edition, 70. You can see in the bottom there it says 70 CL. This is an American edition. Oops, almost knocked that over. Thank God I didn't. This is an American 750. Now, the funny thing is, if you hold the bottles next to each other, with the naked eye, they look like they're the same size. They've made more room for the whiskey by just, and the difference in the sizes, by just going out a little bit. They're just slightly different. But if you hold them in your hand, you can feel the weight difference. All right. So I'm opening the American version. I don't know if I'll ever open up the UK version. I got the UK version on auction. I was hoping I would get it faster than waiting for an American bottling. Literally like 2 days after the UK bottle showed up, this one showed up. So I'm going to put this back. One of these days I may open it, may trade it. Who knows? I'm not a flipper. I'm not into flipping. But there we go. Alrighty. Jason, Whiskey Wise, have not seen you in a long time, sir. How are you doing? Actually, I mentioned you in one of my videos recently, in which I talked about someone who did high quality videos and yet was using, a portable device like this. For those who don't know, Jason Whiskey Wise, his channel's been sort of paused. He's working in the industry, an absolute gentleman. We had a great time hanging out in 2018. He showed me around London. Then we hung out at Milroy's in London, in Soho. And then we met up briefly during my last trip to Scotland as well. Anyway, sir, thank you very much for joining in. George Kaplan, thank you much for tuning in. So George Kaplan says, you better try them both and compare. If I had more bottles, I would, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to open 2 bottles at the same time. So Scotch Test Dummies has reviewed this already. I sent Scott a link, but he might be busy. He might be at work, don't know what they're doing. They had gone live today, so he's probably spending time with family. But I sent him a link, so if he wants to drop in. Thus far, as far as I know, other whiskey tubers, he's the only one who's gotten a bottle of the Ardbeg Blaaack. And I have been itching to get in this. I mean, the day it arrives, the day the bottle arrives. Oh, don't, not yet. Wait till you finish Texas Whiskey Month. Don't open it yet. No. I've been really holding myself back. So I actually wrapped up Texas Whiskey Month, posted that video this morning. Because just so I can move things along. Now, I love, excuse me, I got something in my eye. I think I got an eyelash in my eye real quick. So I love the Texas whiskeys. I've had a fantastic time visiting Texas. I'm still planning to go down there in June and July if things don't get canceled, but I'm a very eclectic person. I have a wide variety of tastes in music, food, whiskeys, and wines. But I can also quickly sort of get burnt out on anything, right? So a favorite band of mine puts out a new album. Man, I'm listening to that thing when I get up in the morning. I'm listening on the way to work. I'm listening on the way home from work. Might be listening at work. And then after, just till I'm completely burnt out on it, and then I got to go move on to something else. But then later on, I come back to it, and it's like listening to it for the first time. Same thing with whiskeys and with wines. It's been fantastic with Texas. The people in Texas have been fantastic, but I have been itching to move on. I have been in the mood for some peat. And ever since I heard about this, I've just been itching. Of course, the next bottle I'm waiting for is the Ardbeg 5-year-old Wee Beastie. Seen the label online, have no idea when it's going to, but you know me, I will be jumping on that as soon as it's available. James McGowan, if I pronounce your name, hope I thank you for tuning in. Jason Whiskey said, yeah, I saw this notification, said I can't miss this. How are you? And it's so right now it is like, wow, it's got to be like 2 a.m. your time. Perhaps you're off work. I don't know. I'm working tomorrow. I'm back to work. I am essential personnel. In fact, I have a letter that if I get pulled over, hey, why are you driving around? Don't you know there's a quarantine or whatever? I have a letter that designates me as essential personnel, so I'll go to work. I don't mind going into work as long as there isn't, because there's a lot of drama, just people spazzing out, and I can focus on work rather than on nonsense. Jason Whiskey Wise, have you tried the 1990? He says, I know what you're talking about. I'm best. No, I haven't, but now I'm sort of looking to go back. By the way, I'm letting this breathe a little bit. I'm looking to go back and get some of the older bottlings of Ardbeg that are still out there. I'm not spending $500 or some insane amount of money. There are still a few around under $200 that you can grab. So I'm keeping my eyes open. And I could have filled up my suitcase with them last time I was at the Whiskey Exchange when I was in London last time, but I didn't want to fill up my bag just from one place, but I could have. And brought them home at a decent price. So let's talk about the visual real quick. I was expecting this to be a different color. Jason Whiskey says, if you find the first edition of it, I heard it's amazing. I'll keep my eyes open. So usually, whenever I see a whiskey that is aged or finished in a red wine cask, there's much more of a red tint to it. And I'm looking for it now. For example, the Long Grow Reds, there's kind of a red tinge to it. So even before you put your nose to it, it's like red wine cask. You kind of know. But this one, not so much. It's pretty golden. Has it darkened the color a little bit? Maybe, but I'm not seeing the red tinge that you typically get off of the red wine cask. So just visually and on the nose at first, I would not guess that this has spent time on a red wine cask. By the way, take a little sip because that's what we do. Mark Brown, took me getting past the neck to realize I used black glass for this release, not the usual dark green. Interesting. Yeah, Acosta, sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. ECOSSC. Yeah, Pinot Noir, isn't it? Yes. So I was going to talk a little about Pinot Noir. So Scotch Test Dummies posted their video. And Scott said, other than a red wine, he didn't know what Pinot Noir was. So I thought I'll talk a little bit about Pinot Noir, and I don't expect him to. And everybody knows. In fact, Bart then said, we'll have to talk to Eric. I have to ask Erik about that. Erik Wade about that. So Pinot Noir is one of my favorite grapes. Pinot Noir is a Burgundian varietal, so more eastern France. It's actually part of a Pinot family. There's Pinot Gris, there's Pinot Blanc. There's a whole Pinot family. It's a grape that mutates a lot, the mutants. So it's highly subject to change. James McGowan says, love the Long Grow Red 11 Pinot Noir. Pretty keen to try this one. So I've tried that one. I don't have a bottle of it, but I've tried it. And just visually and on the nose thus far, man, worlds apart. You get much more. James says the X-Men of grapes. Yeah, it's a very, very much a very mutant grape. In fact, I've seen a vine that had Pinot Noir on it and Pinot Blanc on it. Because the grape on the same vine, one vine, the bunch mutated. So you had white grapes and red grapes on the same vine. It just changes a lot. Pinot Noir is a very finicky grape. It requires specific soils and climate to show its best. Very challenging. However, Pinot Noir is a very lightly tannic wine. Let's say medium to medium minus to even low tannins. In other words, it doesn't have a lot of grip and astringency to it. Take another sip. Tends to be higher in acidity. California versions tend to be very full-bodied, 14.5 alcohol by volume. Because it is lighter in tannin, it can play very widely. It can play with red meats. I know this is a whiskey channel, not a wine channel, but I'm just giving you background. Red meats, you could have if you have a full-bodied Pinot Noir from California, It'll work well with a steak, as would a Cabernet Sauvignon. But say like a Russian River Pinot Noir, it also do really well with fish. One of my favorite pairings of all time is a Russian River Pinot Noir or Santa Cruz Mountains Pinot Noir with smoked salmon or grilled salmon. Man, it is just awesome. That is one of my favorite pairings. Or if you like mushrooms, like a stuffed portobello mushroom, absolutely fantastic. Or some risotto with mushrooms in it. All right. So why does having any knowledge or anything knowledge about that important for understanding whiskey? Move this back a little bit. So here is this is a Santa Cruz Mountain Pinot Noir from Windy Oaks. I don't have any New Zealand Pinot Noir bottles on hand. So the Ardbeg 10 aged apparently 5 years. That's not a finishing. That's a second aging. 5 years in a New Zealand Pinot Noir cask. And that surprises me because look at the color, right? Look at it doesn't have a red tinge to it. Now, I don't know how accurate what you're looking at is, and plus you got all the stuff behind me shit coming through it. I was expecting it to be a little more red. But New Zealand Pinot Noir is very similar to California Pinot Noir. The main regions for Pinot Noir in New Zealand would be Marlborough, Martinborough, and Central Otago on the South Island. The other grape and I'm getting off on a tangent, for New Zealand, the one they're most known for whites is a Sauvignon Blanc. Anyway, that's wine. A Burgundian, here's a Burgundy. This is a Chevy Chambertin Premier Cru Le Corbeau from Domaine Bachelet. This wine will probably run you $150, $175, something like that. This is a very, very high-end Burgundy. One of the main differences is a Burgundian Pinot Noir is going to be a little bit more earthy. If I have a bottle of, if it's from St. Louis, George, it's going to have a little bit more tannic, really, really earthy, right? California and New Zealand are fresh and fruity and cherry. Russian River, you get this kind of root beer character to it. A lot of cinnamon, sandalwood, really, 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 really nice. So, if you're choosing a red wine and you want to have a red wine influence, I'm kind of surprised they're going Pinot Noir. I'm kind of surprised they're going New Zealand Pinot Noir because I just don't think it's going to have a huge impact, particularly with a more heavy, peaty, smoky whiskey. Whereas, say, a Longrow, which is far lighter in peat, not as oceanic and all that, I think you're going to get, this is just prejudging, or this is speculation, or theorizing, I should say, theorizing. I think you're going to get much more of that fruit character coming from the Pinot Noir. But thus far on the nose, what I'm getting is much more of a classic Ardbeg character. And what I'm not getting is any red fruit notes. Of course, this is an uncorking. I'm just barely getting into it. Ekose, if I'm pronouncing him correctly, he says more of a Shiraz man. So a Shiraz, which is Syrah, they call it Shiraz in South Africa and Australia, sometimes here in California too, but Syrah. In terms of spice and fruit, can be, depending on the climate, similar to a Pinot Noir, but you're going to have more tannins and more pepper. And if from the Northern Rhone, you get more leather and barbecue notes and meaty character to it, which I really, really like. But that's all another story. One last cost says, I found Pinot strongest on the finish. So anyway, so I'm thus far, in terms of, so when I hear Ardbeg and I hear Pinot Noir cask, what I'm sort of anticipating and thinking this whiskey might be like thus far, even though I'm just barely getting into it, it's nowhere near like what I was expecting. It's not near what I was expecting in terms of color, nor in aromas. Usually with a red wine cask, excuse me, with a wine cask, yeah, red wine finish or cask, I would get more of a chocolate covered cherry note, and I'm not getting that. But of course, as I said, although, I'm getting lots of chocolate, getting the smoke. Perhaps it's more of a chocolate covered cherry note. Jason Whiskey Guy says, I need to head to bed, but we'll catch up with the rest tomorrow. Hey, sir, really great seeing you here. And we miss you, and I miss your videos. And hopefully one of these days you can resume. But I know the whiskey world keeps you busy. Cheers and salons to you, sir. Thank you very much. I always like Jason's notes. He's really, really, really good. I think he's very, very professional. And I thought he's always put out quality content. Sort of, I think, a really good, solid, classic whiskey reviewer. And just an all-around great dude. I think there's a London Whiskey Club. I think he's involved with that, too. That probably keeps him busy as well. Mm. 50.7% alcohol by volume. Excuse me. Early in my whiskey journey, 48 was sort of my sweet spot. I then sort of became much more accustomed to the cask strengths. But I still think, that 50 range, in terms of something that I don't want to add water to, that I don't want to have to sort of make a lot of adjustments with, 48 to 50 is still my sweet spot. So just on that alone, I kind of like it. One of the challenges of peated whiskeys, particularly when you first pour them, is, especially Laphroaig, is trying to break through that smoke to get something other than smoke, 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 peat, 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 smoke, smoke, smoke. It just takes time. Which is another reason why I sort of weaned away from doing uncorkings live in terms of talking about it, because anything I say is just premature. You know what I mean? AJ Lopez says, how things been for y'all? This whiskey is one that I'm interested in for the fact that it was a New Zealand Pinot Noir matured for 5 years. When it comes to Ardbeg, I'm going to pull the trigger regardless, just because I'm an Ardbeg fan. Choose a football team and support it. If you choose a local football team, let's say you're at Pittsburgh and you choose the Steelers, and you move somewhere else, stick with the Steelers, even though you move to San Diego and Chargers is the local team or whatever. I think Ardbeg is just sort of fitting that hole for me. That's my team. That's my team. So one last cause, Springbank. You know what? If I wasn't such a big Islay fan and such a big Ardbeg fan, that would be my next team. Would be Springbank. So one last cause. I'm totally there with you. In fact, I'm almost ready to. Outside of Islay, my number 2 is going to be Springbank. Definitely. Richard Romero, thank you much for tuning. He says, hi, I've been studying Break Time, Harbinger, and the Glass tonight. Cheers. So if you guys didn't catch, I did a live stream with Robert Licorice and Josh Galladay. We were talking about Harbinger. He didn't say it so at the time, but I could kind of, through the video, it seemed like something was off. The vibe or something. I couldn't tell what it was. The energy. I guess the energy. And then we get off, when we finished the live stream, Robert told me he'd been working like crazy, producing hand sanitizer needed for the hospitals in light of the situation. If I had known he was that dead tired, I would have said, hey, totally appreciate you coming on, but get some rest, right? I'm getting blind. The sun's coming down through my blinders over here. I'm getting blind a little bit. Totally appreciate it. What a trooper that despite being dead tired, because he'd made a commitment to come on the channel, he was willing to do it. But so cheers for that. But anyway, we'll move on from there. But I totally appreciate it. Anyway, love the Harbinger, but I'm kind of ready to move on from Texas and get back into Islay. Burtone says, got to try some of the single casks from Ardbeg. Some have been amazing. I really enjoyed their single Muscatel barrel 13-year. I've not even heard of that one. Yeah, I'd like to get some hands on some of those harder to find Ardbegs. Brutone, where do you live? Are you in the UK, Europe, you're here in the United States, Canada? Where are you at? Because some of those bottles, if I could, it's almost worth just go back to England, go to London, and fill up my suitcase with Ardbegs that I can't get here because there's so many of them. Right now, having bottles shipped to the United States. Oh, he's in the States. Anything you can get in the States, let's say, just to pick a number, let's say it's 200 euro, just an easy number. By the time you add tariff and then add shipping, you're almost doubling the cost. So from now on, I hate to say this, but having anything shipped or any auctions or anything in the UK until the tariffs end, I'm just not going there. It's just insane. And to buy something at an extremely high price that a year from now could cost me half as much. Nah, yeah, it's just freaking crazy. I'm just not doing that anymore. George Captain says, yeah, that's weird. I was just about to post on Instagram about that. Iron Root, Eric, wait. Thanks. And the thing is, in the economic struggles, already Scotland was feeling the hand on his throat, so to speak, with the tariffs. If you guys watched my series on the history of Scotch whiskey and then the business of Scotch whiskey and the vibe and the talk that has been is there's this boom in Scotland with new distilleries, expanded distilleries, right? Macallan just spent $1 gazillion expanding the distillery, built a whole new distillery. Old dead distilleries are being resurrected, such as Annandale and Brora. So it's like, happy times are here again, da 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 da. You know, which is sort of a song they're singing at the end of Prohibition and the Great Depression and all that. It was like, wow, this is awesome. I can't see anything stopping this Scotch whiskey boom, right? Because everything's awesome. The demand is high. People want to buy. As long as the economy is good, people are going to be buying, da 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 da. There are always things that are unpredictable, whether you're talking about war, disease, or politics. Bruno Jones says, last thing I got on auction is an Octomore, the 4.2, partially done in Chateau Yquem. Yes, you spelled that correctly. Chateau Yquem barrels before the tariffs hit. Chateau Yquem is a botrytized wine from the Graves region, or Sauternes region, on the southwestern side of Bordeaux, made from Sauvignon Blanc and Semillon, and this mold. It sounds gross. It's sort of a little mold thing. Sucks the moisture out of it, which concentrates the sugars, which gives you very, very, very sweet wine. Then the sun comes out and it blows off, so you don't get rot. It doesn't turn into gray rot because you don't want gray rot. Anyway, sort of a way of making wine that was found accidentally. Grapes are just left too long on the vine, and that's happened, and turns out it makes some magical wines. Anyway, so Chateau Yquem is the top tier for Sauternes. But yeah, it tends to give you those sweeter notes. There's the Glenmorangie Côte d'Or, or no, just Dior. Côte means hillside. So the Dior from Glenmorangie is done in Sauternes cask. And the same company also owns Chateau Yquem. So it could be Chateau Yquem cask, but they don't say. So thus far, I really, really like it. This is preliminary, but there's nothing in here that makes me think red wine cask. There's no, I don't, I'm just far, of course. So this is Sunday. I will have some again on Monday. I will have some again on Tuesday. Actually, so Tuesday, I will pour some kind of like this, and I'll put a cover on it. It'll sit there all day. And then I'll record my video and then post it on Wednesday. I'm interested to see. In fact, I might even put some in the glass tonight, lay it in there overnight, and see how it develops overnight. Come down in the morning before I have to work. Just take the cover off, not taste it, because I don't want to, it's on my breath on my way to work. Smell it, see if anything's happened, put the cover back on. Then Monday night after work, come back to it, take the lid off, smell it, taste it, see, note the changes, and then do the same thing on Tuesday. So if you don't have anybody who's going to mess with your glasses, kids or your wife or their significant other, whatever, might screw with your glasses, they'll leave it alone. Kind of a good way to get a whiskey in the glass to open up, and a really good way to sort of learn how the whiskey opens up with a little bit of air. It's got a little sweetness there, medium bodied. Got a lot of your typical Ardbeg notes, but I would say a little bit more chocolate right now than normally what I would get right away from an Ardbeg. It's got the spice, black pepper. There's some savory notes. I was going to say umami, but it's not umami. Sort of in the same camp as savory. That sort of meaty notes, chocolate, and a lot of peat. It's still really, really, really early. Alrighty. So even more than Pinot Noir casks, in terms of an impact, if you start getting into fortified wine casks, Madeira, port, obviously sherry, because those are higher ABV wines, they have a much more dramatic impact on the whiskey from the cask. And I find generally a lot of port casks tend to want to be super dominant on a whiskey. And so sometimes they can kind of, like on the back end, all you're getting is a mouthful of jam, like blackberry jam, which if you like that, that's fine. But I just find it tends to not have as much balance to it. Now, the exception, heading back to Texas, the Heteroceros, which is aged in port casks, the way they avoided the overdominance of port is sort of limited the amount of time it's spent in the cask. So rather than it sitting there for a year or two, they would kind of move whiskey through the cask, so it only had a controlled amount of interaction with it. And so it's much more reined in the port character to keep it from becoming overly dominant, and which is absolutely brilliant, but it's also massively labor intense. James McGowan says, I really like the green spot Chateau Leoville Barton or Barton. Delicious stuff. So I had a sample of that, about this much, that I got from Roy Aquavite. He gave me to take home. So on my first trip to Scotland, we got together a couple times. We got together for dinner at the place I was staying. I stayed at the Hotel du Vent in Glasgow. Very, 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 very nice hotel. I could move in that place. They had a really nice wine list, great restaurant, great whiskey bar. And with dinner, we had a Chateau Leoville Barton or Barton. It's a second growth Bordeaux. So when I visited Leoville Barton or Barton, and our tourist guide pronounced it Barton. And I was like, wouldn't you go more of a Barton kind of sound to it, right? And in fact, there was a guy I was with the Wine Scholar Guild, and there was a guy there from Paris, and I said, how do you pronounce it? He says Barton. I was like, yeah, why is she saying Barton? Well, it's because Barton, the where the name is coming from is actually the guy was Irish, not Scottish. And so she was pronouncing it Barton. But anyway, so Chateau Louveau Barton is a second growth from the 1855 classification of Bordeaux. Very, 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 very high-end wines. Absolutely fantastic. But anyway, yeah, so I tried that as well. Again, I really, really liked that whiskey. And for comparison, I had a bottle of the Chateau Barton, Louveau Barton, with Roy over dinner, sort of get the sense of, hey, this is what the wine tastes like. Can you see any characteristics of the wine showing up in the whiskey? Was sort of the idea. AJ Lopez says, speaking of port, I found a bottle of 22 Quinta Ruben. Okay. I'm excited to do a side-by-side of it compared with a 14-year-old Quinta Ruben. Oh, okay, right. So that's where they increased the age, which is cool. But from what I hear, they haven't changed the they haven't changed the price on it. So Lopez is much better at pronouncing Hechiceros and Brojerios than I am, but excuse me, I'm not known for my pronunciations. Yeah, Jason Coates says the Barton bit is Irish, right? Well, here's the thing about French wines is you think they would all have French names and stuff like that, but like in the Champagne region, most of the founders of champagne houses weren't French. They were German. So there's actually a lot of German names in history behind the champagne houses. And so for a first growth Bordeaux, Chateau Haut-Brion is how you pronounce it in French, but it's actually Chateau O'Brien. It's actually Chateau O'Brien. Again, another Irish name, but they pronounce it Haut-Brion, right? So another Irishman in there. Okay, so Lopez says I pronounce it great. Hey, I've been practicing. So thus far, this preliminary. Tune in Wednesday to see my regular review, to get the more formal review. In fact, I will comment on my final review, a comparison of how it was on the neck pour, which I'm doing now, and how it will be in that video. I'm really curious to see how this develops. My preliminary is I really, really like it. I think it's really, really, really good. But at this point, is it beating the core range of Ardbeg's, Corey Vrecken, Ugadal, even the 10? At this point, I'm saying no. It does. At this point, it's very, 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 very good. It's somewhere between the 10 and the Ugadal, maybe, in terms of quality. Again, this is preliminary. I said that like a gazillion times. Probably tired of hearing me saying that, but whatever. But the price you're paying for it is expensive. The Anoa, if I recall correctly, is finished in, I think that was done in a port cask, or at least a red wine cask. That one is a little more fruity. And I was actually sort of expecting this might be like that. But here's the question I have is, how spent was the casks? In other words, how much juice was left in the wood for the spirit to extract out, right? If it's essentially a dead cask, meaning it's become essentially neutral, then there might not be as much to pull out. So in the wine industry, you can have new oak, first, second, third used oak, and you can have an oak cask which has had, particularly say white wines, which has had numerous other wines in it before, and it has become neutral, meaning it's not providing any new flavors. So why would you put a wine, in this case, I'm talking about wine, why would you put a wine, in a neutral cask? Why not just keep it in stainless steel? Because you don't have to worry about cleaning it. It's easier to get stainless steel. So a lot of wines are not aged in oak. They're just put in stainless steel. Ones you want to have super crisp and fresh, Some, Blancs often are, Rieslings, and those kind. They're not seeing any oak. The difference is, as you guys probably know, I'm sure, that oak breathes, right? So even if you don't want to necessarily extract flavors out of the oak, you may want your wine to breathe to advance the aging process and soften sort of the edges of the impact on the flavor on a wine. So a wine can be matured and have more rounder edges rather than super crisp, sharp acidity and sharp notes to it. And so they'll put it in essentially neutral cask, which means one that's not going to provide any new vanillins or anything like that, or tannins, or any other number of flavors you get out of, or spice out of the oak. So they'll use a neutral cask like that. So then the question I have is, and I don't know who I could get the notes on this. AJ Lopez, would you say black is closer to grooves? No, and that's actually, now that I'm thinking of it, that's actually the one. That's actually the Ard. I'm glad you mentioned that. That's actually the Ardbeg I was thinking of, because the Ardbeg grooves has that black chocolate covered cherry note from a red wine cask, because that was done in the red wine cask. Excellent. In fact, so which will bring to my mind, what I'll do is, when I can get this down some, I'll compare this to the grooves, because that's another red wine cask. AJ, thank you very much for the thought. That's actually the one I kind of had in mind over the Anoa. So the question I have is, how many times had these Pinot Noir casks been used? Had they become essentially neutral, how much was in it to extract from to get into the whiskey? That's a question I have, and I don't know. But spending 5 years, that's a long time. It should have had plenty of time, even though, with the climate they have, with it been a cooler climate, not as radical in temperature fluctuation, I would think get more out of the red wine cask than what this is getting me. James McCarron says that Ralphie's opinion on the Quinta Ruben, older spent barrels needing the extra maturation time to get the same results. Exactly. So thus far, I really like it. I think it's really, really, really good. But I don't think the value is there. If you're not an Ardbeg, I get my son coming. The sunshine. I usually don't go live this time, so I get the sun hitting me right in the eyeballs, and my shades don't go that high on the windows. So, if you're not just an Ardbeg fan like I am, or if you're looking for something that just tastes really, really great, right now my preliminary review is stick to the core range over buying one of these. Don't go bananas. If that's all you're looking for, it's another great tasting whiskey. Don't go bananas for it. It's good. It just isn't $150, $200, whatever someone's selling them for. Good. That's all I'm saying. Again, said it many times already. Wow, I'm totally getting blinded by the sun here right now. There's nothing I can do about it. So my kitchen is that way, and then I have a big glass window, and then I have the shade. They have the shades, the blinds closed, but above that is this space like this, and so the sun's like right through there. So I need about a half an hour. I was not anticipating this. It's really beaming me in the face. All right, I'm going to lean in here a little bit. AJ Lopez says, I'm an Ardbeg fanboy, so I'll fight someone for a CR Black. Okay. Only because exactly. And that's sort of that's sort of really more of the play there, that just so even if your favorite football team is not winning the Super Bowl, they're not going to the playoffs, still you're going to root for them, right? It's kind of that sort of a deal. Richard Mara says, been enjoying all the content. We all need the distraction. Thanks for all you do. Well, thank you very much. And the funny thing is, so I had someone on my Friday night live stream with Robert and Josh. He said, some woman said, could you get any more boring or something like that? So my response was, I don't know. I'll try harder. Cracks me up, man. Cracks me. I try. Whatever, dude or woman. Mark Brown says, no one wants to be missed out on the next Dark Cove CR. Exactly. Mark Brown, you're right on spot. Because the Dark Cove is so awesome, but unless you've tasted it, you don't know how awesome it is. So therefore, you might miss out on it and it's gone. So I have 2 Ardbeg Dark Cove CRs. If I had tasted it before I bought them, I could have bought 6. But I only bought 2. And I got them for $150 each, and now they're going for $400, $500. I could have had 6 of them, but who knew? You know, you just don't know. And so when the next one comes out, you go, ooh, could this be the next Ardbeg Dark Cove? And you don't want to miss out on the opportunity, so you're going to jump on them, right? Right. So I'm about halfway through my first Ardbeg Dark Cove. The other one, I'm going to sit on it for a while. I'm not going to hawk, sell it, anything like that, but whatever. One last cause. A/B test against the Ardbeg 10 to pull out nuances. A/B test? What's A/B test? To pull out nuances. So the first, I don't, some I don't, it seems like the Germans get the Ardbegs like way before we do. I mean, I tend to get my hands on them. I've been getting my hands on them before most Americans do. But the Germans seem to go, so unless, and I don't speak German, I have a brother who does. In fact, that's his bachelor's and master's degrees in German. I can have him translate for me, but I don't watch those videos because I'm not going to take the time. And you can get the subtitles and all. I guess you can do all that, but I don't pay any attention to any of the German whiskey reviews just because I'm not going to put the energy into reading a video. So I'll just wait to do my own in English. Richard says, really looking forward to your Total Wine and More Islay comparisons. You know, so those are ones. So I picked up a bunch of affordable. They're like $25 to $40 Islay whiskeys, and the ones which every time I see them, I go, I wonder if they're any good. You know, you see them and you're curious. Nobody talks about them. Nobody reviews them. You don't know how good they are, but kind of curious about them anyway. What the heck? I'll pull the trigger. I'll pick up a bunch, review them, and see if they're worth it. Because if they are good, if they are at least as good as the Ardbeg 10, I would say even a Kalila 12 or something like that, then they're worth buying. But we will see. We will see. And I don't know where they're coming from. I'll try to hunt around, see if I can find out where these distilleries are. But my guess is a lot of them are probably going to be different versions of Kalila. That's my guess, because Kalila, about 90% of what they produce goes into blends, so it's probably easier to get, you know, a Kalila cast than from anywhere else, and for less money. Burrowtone says, I have a ton of German exclusive independent bottles. Interesting. Burrowtone, did you see the Whiskey Tribe Lefroy Obsession video? That's a German exclusive. I might have seen it. I don't remember. You know what? This has now been open for about 45 minutes. It's starting to come around. RJ Tyler, can you recommend an Ardbeg with sweeter notes? I've been drinking Connemara and I'm enjoying it. I think I like peat. Yep, the Anoa. A-N-O-A. Anoa or Anoa. How do they pronounce it? Yep. Lighter in peat than the other Ardbegs. I just did a video on my Ardbeg collection, and I mentioned this in that video. Try the Ardbeg Anoa. It'll be slightly softer peat. It'll be a little bit more fruit character to it. So I think that's what, and I don't know what they go for. I'm guessing $75, $80 here in the United States. I don't have to look it up, but that's definitely the one I would go for. In fact, I consider that one sort of a good segue into Ardbeg. The thing is, my camera has to self-adjust to the lighting change, and this is kind of driving me nuts. I gotta kind of duck the sun there. Next time, I will anticipate the sun and put a blanket or something up there, because this is ridiculous. So this is opening up more. It's becoming softer. little sweeter, a little more velvety on the palate. It's not as much as, with the smoke. And I haven't even poured myself a second dram. I'll probably pour myself a second one offline, off camera. But I'll pour myself a little bit more right now. It's seeming a little bit softer now, a little sweeter, a little smoother, and the fruit's finally starting to come around. So sometimes when I'm not recording or doing a live stream of an uncorking, I might have a dram, put a cover on it, then have dinner, and then have an after dinner dram. And just see within that hour. So I'm maybe not even put a cover on it, right? And just see how much it's evolved over after dinner, and see how much it's changed. So in terms of, it's kind of funny, in light of our current situation, Bay Area has been on lockdown. YouTube has sent a lot of their employees home. So there's been a higher demand because more people are viewing, and of us whiskey tubers creating more. So there's higher demand and yet less supply of people working. I want to thank the YouTube personnel, people who are working. Thus far, at least here in the United States, we have been able to do really, really well. Alan, a whiskey friend, I don't know if it's his connection or whatever else, but he had technical difficulties, but mine thus far has done really, really well. And thus far, when I was in here in the United States, it's been doing really, really well. So when you go to the grocery store, I went to the grocery store a week ago, and I knew it was going to be crazy for the lady. I got there super early in the morning before heading off to work early in the morning, and I was feeling for her because she had the gloves on. She's going to be stressed. She's going to be super busy. Grocery carts are going to be full. It's just going to be an insane time for her. They had a full load of food and supplies. They didn't have enough people to keep everything on the shelves. They lacked the workforce to keep stuff on the shelves. That's the issue. So in other words, it's sitting in the back. Take an extra step to say thank you to the people who are keeping things going. We should always be thankful. We should always be friendly, and I try to be. But on Islay, remember to thumbs up on the video. Hey, thank you very much. On Islay, I can tell the sun's finally dropping down. On Islay, they have something called the Islay Wave. On Islay and Arran and on the Kintyre Peninsula, you have a lot of one-lane roads. So you're driving down the road and you see a car coming at you. What are you going to run into each other? So you have to kind of they have these little turnout spots. So you pull over a little bit, they go by. And when people go by, you wave. Even in town where you have, 2 lanes, you wave. There's the Islay Wave. I think it sort of sets a mood, a friendliness. I mean, on California freeways, you're more likely to get a middle finger than you are to get a wave, right? Because the way these people, especially in the Bay Area, one of the things I'm glad to get out of the Bay Area was just the rudeness and just the people. This is a time we can be a little bit more thoughtful. This is my sermon for the Sunday. Be a little more thoughtful and go the extra step to wave. So if you're an Islay whiskey fan, start doing the Islay Wave at home. So when I'm driving around, wave. If you're at the grocery store and she's, the lady or the person going, running the register, hey, I just want to thank you for what you're doing. I know it's crazy. I greatly appreciate it. And I then went down to the end and I bagged most of my own groceries, right? Try to take the load off of them. And anybody else who's keeping things going. Fire department, police department, public utilities, just go the extra mile and be thankful. It's kind of like the holidays at Christmas time. And at Christmas time, everybody's in a good mood. Hey, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Merry Christmas. Sort of the same thing to sort of lighten the mood. And I think each little bit can sort of get passed on, and we can at least a little bit, lighten people's mood and get people to lighten up just a little bit and realize we're all in this together. Lopez says, I knew SoCal and LA the way Maynard from Tool views those areas in song. Enema. Yeah. So I'm a Tool fan, and Maynard, he lives in Arizona up on the hill country, and that's where he makes his wines. And I'm very familiar. I'm a big Tool fan. I became a Tool fan in order to become accustomed with Maynard Keenan, to know him, to see how that's reflected in his wines. So I wanted to know his music because there's an element of the artistry and craftsmanship in the music that will reflect the person just as well as making the wines. And so that's how I got into Tool. Acost says, Give Way is called here. Not sure if that's a thing in America. Not in California. In California, it's honking your horn and flipping the bird. That's California. That is California, particularly the Bay Area. When you get out of the Bay Area in the inner city, it gets friendlier. You move to Central Valley, it gets friendlier. But San Francisco, the city of San Francisco is literally a shithole. In England, when you're going on the trains or the subways, what do you want to call them? They have the sign that says "Mind the Gap." In San Francisco, it's "Mind the Crap." Potholes everywhere. It's just a shit show. Anyway, let's be positive. All right. Jason Coates says plenty of country roads around here. Anyways, happy to be out of the Bay Area. So pass on the love, pass on the spirit of Islay. I was almost tempted to go down by the traffic lights and hold up a sign that said, "Peace be with you, we'll get through this," or some sort of positive message. Just go down there and send them by the freeway. But the message is stay at home, stay indoors, don't be out there. So, but I thought about it. Maybe I could put a sign on the back of my truck as I'm driving around. Peace be with you. Something like something little message like that. We're all in this together. The entire world's in this together. We'll get through this together. So hang tough. Richard Merrow, Texas food zone areas in the hill country. Same thing. Awesome. I really, really, really like it. Preliminary score, 88 points. Preliminary score, 88 points. But what's affecting that is the price. Akash says, Pete's be with you. Yes, Pete's be with you. I like that. I like that. Man, I'm gonna make a T-shirt out of that one. I like that with a picture of a Glen Cairn. Pete's be with you, and Ardbeg or whatever, something like that. I like that. So it's been really good. For us whiskey tubers, one of the things I like about it, in addition to the whiskeys and the whiskey shared and the people shared, is we come together. Richard Romero says, instead of F off, tell them to Pete off. We come together, we support each other, we interact with each other, and that's just sort of one. And a lot of people are coming onto each other's channels and stuff like that. We'll really enjoy that. I appreciate everyone here. I've got 12 people watching. There might be more people who watch on the replay. I appreciate you watching, tuning in. I like being a distraction, being maybe a little educational, maybe a little bit entertaining. And I've been at this for about an hour. I got one more minute and we'll hit the 1 hour mark. So got to go to work Monday morning. Not looking forward to it. Work is fine. Everybody's on edge. And I'm sort of hoping people can kind of chill out, take a deep breath, relax, and we'll get through it. Do everything else they're telling you to do, washing your hands and all sanitize and all that nonsense. Keep 6 feet distance, whatever. So rather than shaking people's hands, this is the other thing I'm doing because I'm a Star Trek nerd. Rather than Pete out, there you go, Pete out. Rather than shaking hands, right? Because we're not doing this anymore. I'm a Star Trek nerd. Live long and prosper. Live long and prosper. In case you don't. So this is the Hebrew letter shaped like the Hebrew letter shin, which gives you the sound in Hebrew, which is the first letter in the word shalom, or peace. It's also the first letter in the word Shema, which means hear. And so the sort of first little confessional statement of the Jews is, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one." So that's where this comes. So Leonard Nimoy, I know, give you some Star Trek trivia. Leonard Nimoy was raised Orthodox Jewish, so he incorporated this hand symbol into the Vulcan culture, because that's the way that the rabbis would, when they prayed, they would hold their hands up like this, and so that got incorporated into Star Trek. So it's sort of Shema, peace, kind of like a 1960s peace symbol from Star Trek, started 1966. Anyway, so this is sort of a Vulcan version of this. So anyway, I'm going to sign out and say, Pete, be with you, and live long and prosper. Have an excellent week. And I'm looking forward to getting more into this, and we'll see how things turn out on Wednesday. Again, thank you to everyone who tuned in during the live stream and watching on the replay next time. Sanjiva, cheers.